Hey everybody, welcome back. It is the Razzball Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I am Beat On, joined by the Fantasy Master Lothario, Gray Albright. How's it going over there, Gray?
It's going okay, man. So I ran into a little bit of an issue in the last week. I saw that you and Rudy Gamble on the football podcast were doing the Sex Panther game. That's I thought that was our thing, man.
You know, if you could explain it to me, I might give it to you that it's our thing. But given that you can't explain the rules to me after like the 10th time we've played it, I feel like I get free reign of use on the game. But you feel free to tell me if you feel it differently, and I'll remove it from
Okay. Sex Panther means we trust them to be real. I don't believe it means we don't believe it, and there's one other one.
There is one other one that is correct. There's one more.
Oh man. Oh, you got me. Okay. Anyway, let's do the podcast. Let's go.
All right, let's jump into it. Yeah, Gray, I feel like I'm just glad you had me on the podcast because, I was out at the casino a little late the other night and I didn't know if I got sent down to the minors because that happened to the only good player on the entire Nationals baseball team. CJ Abrams was out gambling, maybe a little late, given that he had a 1:00 game. Whatever. It is what it is. He's a young man. He can bounce back, I'm sure. Also, the Nationals are like 75 games out of the third wild card spot. So let's put that in this mix too. What's going on here, Greg?
Okay, so here, unfortunately, I was also at the casino late, right? And I said to CJ, I was like, "Hey, man, this table's getting hot, bro. You don't want to leave it. Actually, no, honestly, I would have more respect for CJ Abrams if he were up till 8 a.m. playing anything but roulette. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, roulette is the dumbest game. Like, that was the pictures. I don't know if people saw them, but the pictures that came out that got him busted, there was pictures of him at the roulette wheel at 8 o'clock in the morning. Would have been awesome if he were already wearing his uniform and his glove. Like, I want give me $5 on 22, $5 on 18, $5 on 28, and the ball flies out of the wheel and he catches it with his mitt. Oh man, I wish he wasn't playing roulette. That's my biggest problem with what he was doing. Yeah, honestly, I think it was a matter of him getting caught and it being publicized on Twitter versus actually just doing it. Like, I can't imagine anyone really had a problem with, like, I think he was hitting like 400 in the last week. Like, he was having a good, I think he was having a decent September. Like, he wasn't playing badly. So yeah, I think it was more that, like, the Nationals, the organization, got caught with their hands tied, and like, CJ Abrams got caught, it got publicized, and then they were like, well, we got to punish you, I guess. This is so stupid. I mean, they're grown men. I get it. You don't want guys staying up all night gambling, I guess, if they're, if they have to get to work at 1:00 in the afternoon. But yeah, I mean, he wasn't playing that bad. I saw a few people. I was getting aggravated. Speaking of Twitter, if you want to get aggravated, go onto Twitter. But some people were saying how, like, CJ Abrams was punished for staying out till 8 a.m. and it didn't make any difference at all where he was, which is really the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. That is really stupid.
But Gray, if he was at church, he still would have gotten in trouble.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's like, please turn to Psalm 3:17. I don't know the Bible, obviously, but yeah, let's turn to John the Baptist. I don't know the Bible enough to make references, but yeah, turn to this Psalm and let's read it at 8 in the morning. Oh no, CJ Abrams is at church. You gotta go. I'm sorry, you gotta go to the minors. You can't. There's a bad a minors church joke there. But anyway, yeah, I just think this is all just so stupid. The CJ Abrams, man, I feel bad for him. If anything, I hope this like lights a fire under his ass next year, and he does really well because of this embarrassing moment. I hope it doesn't come also with him betting the over on all his stats and then getting caught. I hope that doesn't happen too, but we'll see. Anyway, move along.
I mean, it's really great that CJ Abrams can be at a casino until get sent down to the minors as the all-star representative from the team. Ohtani misplaces $40 million and nothing, not a damn thing. But Ohtani went 50-50. Abrams didn't go 50-50. So, you got to give him a pass. And at this point, it's not even 50-50. It's 53-55. With 128, 123, 301, 383, 640. I mean, these are the most ridiculous numbers I've ever read on the show. Greg,
I know. Like,
I've never read numbers like that on this show.
Like those numbers, like people are like talking about Aaron Judge's year, like, well, mostly Yankee fans, right? Aaron Judge is having a great year, but he's got like basically the same amount of homers as Ohtani, and Ohtani has 40 plus more steals. Like, what is that? Like, that's crazy. That is so nuts. How like this Ohtani year? Yeah, no, honestly, I think the Nats, the Nationals said in a statement, if you're going to be a degenerate gambler, you have to go 50-50. Those are the rules. Rob Manfred has laid out these rules. That's what you have to do 50-50 at least. Oh man, yeah, this Ohtani year. Oh my God. To have Ohtani in every league. I have Ohtani in one league, and that's like one of my worst leagues. Somehow I blew the Ohtani year. I wasted the Ohtani year trying to do some janky strategy where I don't draft any starters. So dumb. Literally the dumbest person alive. Oh man.
Gray, I know we don't talk, it's not really a fantasy stat, but I'm going to have to start wondering about Baseball Reference's offensive WAR number here, because Ohtani's fourth. Like, how in the world is Ohtani anything other than 1 or 2 in offensive WAR? Like, you have to look at what's going on in the background if he's not 1 or 2. I saw
he was actually below Jarren Duran and Gunnar Henderson. Like, how is it possible? How is it possible to be behind Gunnar Henderson or Jarren Duran? Especially Duran, because isn't he bringing value because of his? This is offensive WAR, by the way. This is it's like it doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't get it. How is like Gunnar Henderson? Like, I don't know, man. I mean, actually, Jarren Duran is on total WAR, not offensive WAR, but still, that's because of defense. But still, I mean, that is so, like, honestly, like, it doesn't make any sense, man. I'm sorry. Like, I know, like, WAR is supposed to be, measuring a guy's value across the board. Like, obviously, a DH has less value, but when you put Ohtani in your lineup, doesn't him being in your lineup give you more? Like, it's like that gives you more value than, like, who do you want to pitch to? It doesn't matter that he's a DH. Like, I don't like a DH is a part of the lineup, especially now. It's in the NL and the AL. So, like, the fact that the DH is a position, like, I don't know. It drives me a little bit crazy when people are like, "Oh yeah, but he doesn't play the field." Like, so that's like saying, like, "Oh, your catcher doesn't play second base." Yeah, but he's catching. It's like the guy's DHing. That's what he does. He's DHing. That's his position. I mean, I'm sorry that if you don't like the DH, that's a totally different argument. But I mean, the fact that people just discount DH because it doesn't field, it's like, but that's what it is. That's not, I mean, you're discounting something for what it is. It is a DH. That's what he does. He hits. I don't know. Anyway, Ohtani's having an insane year, man. Oh my God. He was like, what was his ADP too? It was like 12 maybe. Like, there's like, that's next year. I mean, next week we're going to do the top 25 for 2025. So don't want to get out in front of our skis here, but I mean, it's going to be hard not to take Ohtani number one, right? I mean,
yeah, I mean, he was 11 over like the last couple of weeks of draft season. I mean, that you saw him drop further than that in some leagues, and you saw him go earlier than that in some leagues. I mean, I don't think I've ever had him below 3 as long as he's been doing his thing. So, talking the wrong guy. I'm going to be taking him early. But yeah, I mean, he's really impressive. He basically said, like, I saw what you did, Acuna. I can do that better. And as far as WAR goes, like, Aaron Judge is a negative 10.5 defensive WAR on Fangraphs. Ohtani not stepping foot at all on the field is a negative 16.5. Is it better to have a bad defensive WAR or to not step on the field? Like, if you're bad at defense.
That was my big thing last year with Mookie Betts. Like, it was like, oh yeah, Mookie Betts played shortstop. It's like, yeah, but he made like 15 errors.
He played it really bad. He doesn't have range. Like,
I know.
Really,
I mean, I don't mind it. Like, I like it for fantasy. I mean, I do think it's a drawback when a guy only has utility only. Like, I agree with that. If you want to make that argument, fine. But in real baseball, when people are like, oh yeah, but he doesn't play the field, and then you have guys like Aaron Judge, it's like, yeah, but he's a negative in the field. Like, why is that good? This is like crazy. Like, what are you talking about? Like, this doesn't make any sense. It's like, yeah, I get it. He's playing the field, but it's not good.
Yeah, but if you're not good at it, does it matter? Like, do you want him playing the field? Would you rather not have Stanton on a massive contract and just have Aaron Judge hitting the ball all the time and just mashing? By the way, I was just looking. Brian Reynolds is a negative 18.5 defensive WAR. That's amazing that he's worse than the DH, like any DH, any play. Like, that's ridiculous. Let's move over to some other recap items here, Gray. Let's talk about how you're doing your leagues real quick. You know, usually people don't care about how people are doing your leagues, but you know, you play in maybe like the 2 leagues in the world that people might care about. So how are they going?
Well, one of them is the one I have Ohtani in, and that's the one where I didn't draft any starting pitching, and that league is doing terrible. It's not doing well at all. I drafted I went for a strategy for saves only. It's the only time I've done this strategy. People are familiar, I'm sure, with what I did. And I only drafted closers and relievers. And my 2 closers were Camilo Doval and Albert Alzay. No,
not the one to pick.
Not the ones you want, really, when you're going for saves only. I still managed to be. I have 7 points, 7 out of 12 points in saves. and I'm only like 5 saves away from having 10 points out of 12. So I mean, it is a feasible strategy if you were like, even if you only got one of those closers correct, because everyone else only has one closer. So if you have two closers, you're way ahead of the game. Anyway, it didn't work. It didn't work at all. It's like my ERA and WHIP aren't good. The league is just it didn't work. I'm still in the middle of the pack, mostly because of Ohtani. I wasted Ohtani's year pretty much. I also had Matt Olson in that league, who also wasn't that great. So yeah, it was a bit of a struggle. Middle of the pack. Actually, though, in my labor league, it looks like I'm gonna win. I don't want to jinx it, but I'm in first place, and I have points to gain this final week if I can get a couple more runs. Then I think I'm 4 runs behind, gaining 2 more points, and I'm already in first. So hopefully, knock on wood, it looks like I'm going to win the labor league. So that's good. I haven't won the labor league before. So yeah, that in that league, I drafted. My top guy was Julio Rodriguez. So, everything is not lost when you make a terrible pick. But my second pick was Aaron Judge. So that helped a little bit on the Julio Rodriguez.
Helps.
Yeah, it was I did a lot right in that league. I mean, it's I went hitter heavy, and I mean, that's honestly going into like, as far as like lessons learned, as far as my leagues go, I'm also going to win an NFBC. It looks like I'm going to win an NFBC league where I think I'm going to win like, I don't know, maybe some money. I don't know how much money. Anyway, yeah, I mean, the lessons learned, I think, is just really digging in and going even harder on going pitching a second in priority, and having hitting being the main focus, like having not punting pitching like I said with my Tout Wars team. I'm not looking at punting starting, but you can punt top pitchers absolutely. Like last year, like this year at least, like Spencer Strider was a total bust. There's a bunch of busts in as far as pitching goes. But like next year, like I can already off the top of my head, like I can already like think about like I wouldn't go anywhere near Corbin Burns. He's going to get drafted high. Like I'm assuming Louis Castillo is going to go in at a pretty decent price. Maybe not as high as he was this year, but still. And he looks like a mess. People will still be back in on Tyler Glasnow. I wouldn't go anywhere near Aaron Nola. People will still be in on him. Like there's a bunch of guys. Let's see. Even I don't even know. Like I'll have to look at Zach Wheeler, but I think even like, there's a lot of starting pitching that just the top. I'm talking about the top guys at least. That it's just so fickle. Whereas like you can get by on like the Seth Lugos of the world, and you could be totally fine. And I say this every year, and it's the same as it always was. It's again like my pitching in that labor league where it looks like I'm going to win. Like my top pitcher was Yamamoto, and I basically lost him for most of the year. My other pitching is Jose Berrios, Yusei Kikuchi, Ranger Suarez, Michael Wacha, Tobias Myers. Like you hear that and you're like, okay, the team's fine. I mean, I'm in first place. Like the pitching's not like necessarily carrying me. It's definitely my hitting, but the pitching's not doing bad. I mean, I'm like middle of the pack with pitching, and that's all you really need to be as long as you nail your hitting. So yeah, I'm just going to probably like lessons learned. I'm just going to dig in even further with like, starting pitching is just, it's not worth paying a premium for. It's like, there's so much fickleness, and it really is so obvious too. If you think about the like 3 categories of like wins are totally fickle. ERA is pretty fickle. and whip is pretty fickle. It depends on like so many factors outside of the guy's control. And every year I say the same thing, and people still go and like, oh, you need Spencer Strider. It's like, why? Why would you need Spencer Strider? It doesn't make any sense. And if you look at the other guys that were drafted high last year, at least, Spencer Strider, Corbin Burns, who's really been really down on strikeouts, Kevin Gausman, Luis Castillo, Pablo Lopez, Zach Gallen, Yamamoto, who I mentioned already, like that's like 6 of the top 10 pitchers, and they were like, not good, or not as good as you expected, at least. So yeah. Anyway, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I think I mean, that's not anything new for people who've been listening to us, Gray, that you're going to continue to go hitters heavy from that side. I will say some of the numbers from this year, home runs are down. We are at 52.46 right now. Last year we had 58.68. Stolen bases are going to be around the same area. Average and on base are both down a little bit. ERA is down in 2024. We're at 409 from 433. So to your point, pitching was even a little bit easier to find this year, which maybe made it a little harder to find the numbers you needed to hit, but same. Then home runs were down, based on that 114 to 114 from 123. Positionally, just looking around real quick, I mean, depth at shortstop, I feel like that's been the case for like 5 years, if not longer now. But third base might be back, Ray, or at least with the kind of dual position eligibility of a bunch of people at third base. Third base actually looked pretty solid this year.
Yeah, and next year you have to assume hopefully you're gonna get Austin Riley back. Maybe you get a little bit more from no, probably not. I was gonna say Bregman, but yeah, I mean he does what he does really. But yeah, Josh Jung, maybe you get a little bit more next year.
Royce Lewis could always stay healthy.
Yeah, definitely. He could. Unlikely. I would bet against it, but yeah, it could happen. Yeah, I mean, there's a few guys, and then and like the guys who actually did well were I mean, Devers did great. Jose Ramirez every year. It's like Jose Ramirez every year puts up a top five year and is never drafted in the top 5. It's like no one ever respects Jose Ramirez's fantasy contributions. Like every year he does so well. Like he's on the verge of having the quietest 40-40 year anyone's ever had. Like most seasons he would be the top guy on the player radar. It just happened that like Aaron Judge and Ohtani were just so great. But yeah, Jose Ramirez has been amazing. Gunnar Henderson's been great. Jazz Chisholm, if he's got third base eligibility next year, I think he should. He's been solid. Third base has been pretty good, not bad. Better than probably people expected coming into the year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I saw Jose Ramirez setting his career high in stolen bases at 32, even with the new rules. But I mean, he's done it. He's cleared it by 6 stolen bases already, and we still have a week left to go. He's been phenomenal. Like you said, any other year he would get a lot of praise, but unfortunately, he's playing in an era where we have Ohtani and Aaron Judge, and they're getting all the talk. But Jose Ramirez continues to be the Rodney Dangerfield of fantasy baseball. Just gets no respect year after year.
There's actually Nolan Arenado. He finally fell off a cliff, but a guy who's similar profile who seemed to is taking over for him is Mark Vientos. Looks really good for the Mets. The Mets managed to ruin guys, but yeah, no, I mean, jokes aside, Mark Vientos looks really solid. So he could potentially move up into the top 10 third baseman for next year too. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, you also never know when like a visit from Elmo or like Oscar the Grouch or Ronald McDonald throws the Mets into like a tailspin and they suck again. So anything could happen. Let's move on to some superlatives, Gray. Rookie of the year. AL versus NL. I mean, it's not really the same. I feel like the NL should just get 2 this year. The AL should
get 0.
Not have a rookie of the year.
Yeah.
Let's start with the AL. It's I think Luis Hill sits at the top. He's got 28 starts. He's got a 3.27, 119 whip, over 146 innings with a 27% K rate. Some of the others in this discussion: Austin Wells, Colton Cowser, William Abreu, Colt Keith, Zidane Rafaela, and Mason Miller. Well, let's just talk about some of these guys as we kind of look forward to next year. I mean, Hill, again, I think he's the odds-on favorite at this point. What do you think he is next year as we start looking forward to like where he falls in the rankings?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to be doom and gloom, but I really hate when like rookie pitchers do a giant jump in innings. And Louis Hill to me is Tomazo, Louis Hill. I think he's just like thrown too many innings this year. I don't think I'm gonna be in on him. I'll have to look at it closer during the offseason, but my guess is I'm gonna probably be out on Louis Hill next year. I like the K's, but I'm not really like I'm not drafting based on K's really at this point. I'm more about command for my starters ever since like the pitch clock. That's the what Lance Lynn grabs before each pitch. The pitch clock, I think, has made it so command is really king right now in baseball, at least for starters. So yeah, I like the K's on Louis Hill, but I don't like the walks. I loved getting him where I got him this year. Like I drafted him, I believe, in the last round of my main event team where I'm probably going to come in fourth, which is just outside the money. So that's not great. But I did have Louis Hill all year. And I drafted him, I believe, in the last round based off of, just like good vibes, really, because I didn't know what to expect. I got, a little luck never hurt anyone. But yeah, I mean, his jump in innings is like really concerning. I don't know. I'm out on him for next year. I would guess he's probably in that, like, I would assume he's going to go in that range of like top 30-ish, like maybe, I don't know, maybe where like Musgrove went this year. Did Musgrove go around there? Like top 35-ish, maybe top 30, probably. I don't know. I think a lot of people probably are going to be worried about his innings. I don't think it's going to be me, but I don't think it's going to just be me. But yeah, I don't know. I would assume he probably goes maybe in that range of like where Bobby Miller went this year, like top 25-ish. Next year, I'm talking. Maybe that's where he goes. I'm out either way, probably, unless he's going much later than that, which I kind of doubt. I feel like he's gonna get pushed up. Maybe like where Grayson Rodriguez went this year, to give people an idea. But yeah, I mean, he had a great year though. I definitely loved having it this year.
Yeah, I think somewhere in that like mid, maybe even early 20s to like 30 range is probably about the right area. That's usually where you kind of stick some of the breakouts along with maybe some of the veterans who we don't trust. Like this year was like Blake Snell and Bobby Miller. Grayson was in there. Cole Reagans was in that group. So yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the right area for him. I agree. I don't know that necessarily going to be overly excited to get him there, but if I take him, I'm not gonna. It's gonna be fine as well. I think the K's are legitimate. I hear what you're saying in regards to the innings because he was coming off injury and he just hasn't thrown a whole lot of innings, so there's definitely some concern on that front. But you have to adjust these kind of things too because who do you really want, or who do you expect to give you a bunch of innings anyways? If he gives you another 150 inning performance, I think that's going to be fine. Just assuming there's no kind of arm issues coming off of this kind of big expansion. I mean, I think among the other names here, like Colton Cowser was one we thought would be in the running. He stayed there. Just he had a lot of hot and cold mixed in. Ceddanne Rafaela had a really nice debut and kind of cooled off as well. And then Mason Miller was probably the front runner for this award at one point, and then he had the injury.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's some other names here, but let's talk about the NL real quick. We talked about all of these guys last week, so not going to spend too much time here, but Jackson Merrill, Jackson Chourio, Paul Skeens, Shota Imanaga all had great seasons. I mean, we're going to have potentially 2 rookies go 2020 if Merrill can get a few more stolen bases here this last week. I mean, Skeens in 130, 140 innings is going to put up just fantastic numbers, and Shota's been great all season. I don't know. There's a whole lot here, but I'll leave it open for you if you want to say anything about this group.
No, I mean, we talked about where we see them going next. We talked about them last week and where we see them going next year. So there's not much more to add. They all had great years, obviously.
Yeah, and we might talk about at least a couple of them next week in the top 25. So let's move on to breakout performance. Gray, who do you got as the breakout performance of the year?
I was actually looking at this earlier today, and I think it's got to easily go to Brent Rooker. I don't like Duran. Duran had a great year. Obviously, Ronel Blanco had a great year. Obviously. Lawrence Butler, Brenton Doyle, they had all great years, but I mean, they were, I mean, Brent Rooker basically, like in my main event league, going back to that, I picked him up off of I picked Brent Rooker off of waivers in the I think the second week of the season. I picked him up off of waivers, and he was going on average, I believe, around 350 overall or something around there. So basically undrafted in like RCLs, which is a 12-team mixed league. So like he was basically free, and he's going to end the year almost, if not top 10 overall, really close to top 10 overall. And there's no, on the player rater, that is. And, there's no way, like Duran, as great as Duran's year was, Duran's below Rooker on the player rater right now. So I don't see how, anyone could be more value than Brent Rooker. Like he wins the most value breakout performance for me easily. Like his year, I don't even think people really realize how good Brent Rooker was this year. He not only had, like, I think people understand that the power was there. He had close to 40 homers as we record this. But he also has 11 steals, and he's hitting nearly 300. Like, there's no flaw in his game other than being on the A's and having a little bit of a lack of runs and RBIs. But otherwise, he's having a phenomenal year.
Yeah, I mean, he's been great. He's top 20 in barrels, hard hit rate, average exit velocity. I mean, he's been phenomenal this season. It's probably my best call of the year. I had him everywhere. I mean, 38, 11, 296 with 110 RBIs is a pretty great year. I guess what we have to talk about anytime we talk about a breakout performance, Gray, is it legitimate? Do you believe that this is going to continue into next season?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned with the barrels, I'm a total believer in Brent Rooker. Unless he goes and something fluky happens with like an injury or something, which you can't really account for. There's no predicting injuries except for Royce Lewis. But yeah, I mean, with Brent Rooker, if he has a fluky injury, then it is what it is. But as you mentioned with the barrels, he's hitting the ball hard across the board. Like he is really breaking out. You don't really see old players break out like him because he's not young necessarily, but yeah, he is doing it. So I believe it. I think he's actually, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a bit of a bargain even next year, going, anywhere outside of like the top 30 is a bargain for Brent Rooker. And I really I'd be shocked if he's inside the top 30. Honestly, I feel like he's going to be maybe 50 to 65. I feel like he's going to be in that range, and that's a bargain.
Yeah, because I mean, even if you take the average down, you say BABIP's high, which it is, but at 360, I believe. But like his BABIP was high like every month this year. It wasn't like, oh, he got lucky 1 month. Like he's a high BABIP guy because he plays in the park he plays in. He hits the ball as hard as he does. And he's not absent of speed. So I like Brent Rooker. I agree. I think he's probably going to be a discount next year just because people aren't going to believe it. They're going to think the average is going to bottom out. He plays for the A's. So, there's that limits some upside potentially, but when he's 11th on the player rater, how much upside can be limited at that point if he's already done that kind of season? Let's move on to the bounce backs. There's a lot of potentials here, Gray. Who are you handing the bounce back of the year award to?
This one I feel like this is probably as clear as a bounce back winner as the Brent Rooker was, because like this guy was, he ended up in the player rater inside the top 10. And no one else is, anywhere close to that for a bounce back at least. So Chris Sale for me, he was going, I believe ADP was after 200 overall. He is, officially as of right this second, number 2 starter on the player rater behind Tariq Skubal, but he could even move in front of Tariq Skubal if he has, if Tariq Skubal gets shut down, or if they try and like limit his innings because, the Tigers make the playoffs or something. I don't know. Whatever could happen, or he just has a bad start. Like Chris Sale and Tariq Skubal are basically 1A and 1B right now. So Chris Sale could move in front of Skubal in this final week. So he's either the number 1 pitcher for the year or the second best pitcher. And he was going on average, like maybe 50th starter off the board, 40th, 45th, something like that. Like he was going nowhere near the top 20 starters, let alone the top 100 overall. I mean, it was going he was going so late. Chris Sale was available in every league. It's funny that it's like you look at, in March when you're drafting, you're like, oh God, I want, I really want the first pick. I really want like the third pick, or whatever narrative you built up in your head. But at the end of the day, it's like, the first pick was Acuna. That really messed you up. Second pick, a lot of people were taking Spencer Strider. That screwed you. I know Rudy's main event team, he was so excited to get Spencer Strider in the first round. And it's like, I think, I don't want to speak out of school, but I think his team's like in 12th or something in that league, 12 out of 15 teams. But something like that. But yeah, it's like you plan this all out in March, and then you look at the end of the season and you're like, well, if I had the 10th pick, I could have got Ohtani and Judge. I could have turned the corner and gotten Ohtani and Judge. And then for my first starter, I could have punted for 15 rounds and took Chris Sale, Seth Lugo. You could have basically built an entire team without a first round pick. Yeah, I mean, I know people forget about this. By the time March comes around again, people will be like, oh my God, you have to get Ohtani. He's going to throw 150 innings and get 250 Ks, and he's going to go 40-40. and then we're going to get to like June of next year. And I don't want to give people like kind of horror here, but it's like Ohtani, I mean,
Don't do it, Gray. Just stop saying anything.
Even say anything, but I'm just saying, like, you think you're like getting like the Cy Young and MVP, you're going to get everything with the first pick when you draft Ohtani, but then like, the guy who takes, Gunnar Henderson 6 overall ends up having the best player on the player rater that year, next year. Anyway, it's like, it really is like, as predictable as this stuff is, it's also completely unpredictable. The only thing predictable about baseball is how unpredictable it is. So anyway, Chris Sale is my bounce back.
Yeah, and I apologize to everybody that I told to just sell Chris Sale because I never saw 177 innings coming. And for every joke I made at Chris Sale's arm falling off because it didn't, and he was great, and I didn't really get to enjoy any of it because I didn't have him anywhere. I'm going to also throw Jurickson Profar into this discussion just because he was left for dead. No team even wanted him. And I mean, he ended up being a top 50 player on the player rater going, after 600 ADP, maybe even after 700 ADP. So just great bounce back from Jurickson Profar. And hopefully he can finally get more than 1 year contract.
Not only did I not believe Jurickson Profar, but I actually had him on a team and I dropped him in April because I so did not believe in Jurickson Profar. That really, it ended up, that's actually the league where it looks like I'm going to win. So, again, you can make mistakes and still overcome them. It didn't hurt again that I had Aaron Judge. But still, it was not one of my best moves, dropping Jurickson Profar.
Yeah, having Aaron Judge or Ohtani or Bobby Witt Jr. this year definitely helped your chances, or Jose Ramirez, all those guys, pretty useful to have on your roster.
Yeah,
definitely cover up some flaws, but that's how it goes. You got to cover up some flaws here. I'm in the head-to-head championship over on CBS, and I think I was looking at it. I have one non-pitcher still on my roster, and it was somebody I've dropped and picked up like 5 times. So it's not even somebody I've like kept on my roster the whole time. I don't have a single person from my draft hitters that are on this championship head-to-head roster right now. Best fantasy value, bounce back, breakout, those are pretty clear. Now we got to weigh both of them together. Would you say it's still Rooker, just given where he was going, or Sale? Just again, he was kind of left for dead.
Yeah, no, I think I got to go Brent Rooker because Chris Sale is as left for dead as Chris Sale was, and unfortunately, if you had Chris Sale early in the year, you might have wanted to trade him away, and you might have traded him away because you never expected this to continue. But as much as all that is true, Brent Rooker was available. Chris Sale was drafted late. Brent Rooker was not drafted. He was basically like, oh, okay, random Oakland A's hitter who is having a good April. Like, no one cared. Like, people did not care about Brent Rooker up until like June. Like, he was having like a good couple months and people were still like, yeah, it'll stop at some point. And it never stopped.
No, it never stopped. He just kept getting better, actually. So yeah, Brent Rooker gets all the awards. Send him home. He is insert Asian film at comedy or at film festival. That's he's just taking them all the awards.
I was wondering where you were going with that.
It feels like the last 5 years there's been an Asian either movie or TV show that just takes every award at
Brent
award
Rooker.
shows.
Okay, so Brent Rooker Brent Rooker is your Parasite and Shogun.
Yeah, Parasite, Shogun, Beef, Squid Games,
everything all at once.
Yeah, he's all of it. I mean, that's how good he's been, Gray.
This is ridiculous.
All right, Gray. I'm going to come up with a game next year that is going to involve those four shows, by the way.
Okay, Parasite, everything all at once, or Shogun. What's Brent Rooker? I'm going to say Brent Rooker's actually Shogun, because if the other ones are, hit or miss for people, Shogun's for real. If you watch Shogun and you don't love it, I think you might not have good taste. That's how I feel about Brent Rooker.
Yeah, I feel like that's appropriate, Gray. I'm also going to just randomly throw Slumdog Millionaire just to really mix it up and
it is
the hell out of you.
Asia, technically.
It is. It's still Asian. It's just mix up the kind of vibes we're getting. All right, Gray. Let's mix up some vibes here. Let's go away from the happiness. Top 50 players that are most unlikely to repeat in 2025. I'll give you some names. You tell me who you're thinking. Obviously, there's Chris Sale. I would love for him to make another 30 starts, but 35, arm issues, etc., etc., etc. Kyle Schwarber, Ketel Marte, Willie Adames, Jack Flaherty, Jurickson Profar, Eugenio Suarez, Matt Chapman. I feel like those are the guys. What are you thinking here? Top 50 player on the player radar, most likely or most unlikely to repeat?
I don't see. I feel like I've been down this road before, but I don't see how. A lot of those names, but I don't feel like how Ketel Marte, he goes from 15 homers to 35 homers, back to 15 homers, back to 35 homers. I don't know how you can trust that. I honestly don't. Kyle Schwarber, I don't know how you trust the average. I think the power is for real. And I don't think, I'm not really I'm not blowing anyone's mind by saying that. I think everyone realizes that. I just don't think he can hit 250 in another year. And Profar is just that is his year is ridiculous. He's never done anything close to this. And then he gets into his 30s and suddenly he's a top 25 player. That doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, I don't know. If anything, I actually trust Chris Sale if he stays healthy, because his stuff, Chris Sale's numbers are really good for his career. I just worry that he won't be able to stay healthy because he never really stays healthy. But his numbers are always good. It's just I think Chris Sale is who people thought they were drafting when they got all excited for Carlos Rodon. And they're like, oh, Carlos Rodon's always good if he's healthy. It's not really good. He's not good, guys. He strikes out people, but he's still a 4+ ERA. Where Chris Sale is I don't have his numbers in front of me, but I think he's nearly under 3 ERA in his career. His career numbers are insane. Chris Sale is always great. It's just he can never stay on the field. So, yeah, that's just a gamble on whether or not a guy can stay healthy. But yeah, I don't know. Jack Flaherty, I don't really hate necessarily. Eugenio Suarez always hits for power. It's just a matter of when it will happen. This year it didn't happen until starting July 1st. I believe he has only second or third to Ohtani and Judge in homers. Matt Chapman, I don't really trust Matt Chapman. But yeah, so yeah, those are my thoughts there.
Yeah, Suarez, April to June, he hit 6 home runs. He hit 10 in July. So, he just caught fire. Suarez would probably be the one I'm least trust, mainly just the age and it's just so inconsistent with him. We saw 22 last year, 29. I don't expect the average to stick up at 260 either. Schwarber's kind of the same category. You hate Ketel Marte. He always provides value one way or the other. I agree, though. Like the power just comes and goes so randomly with him. And Matt Chapman putting up a career high in stolen bases by 11, and all of a sudden becoming a high 20s home run hitter again, which I guess isn't that weird. It's pretty much where he always is, but the 250 part's pretty odd based on what he's been doing in his career. I guess if I had to pick one, I'm going to go with Suarez, but I would probably say all of these guys, if I really have to, aren't going to be in my top 50 again. Maybe that's a error on my part, but I feel like that's what's going to happen. Biggest bust, Gray. There's a name. There's a name in my mind. And we can also go injury.
This is the last time we ever talk about this guy. We never will talk about this guy ever again, okay? I hate him so much.
I have a name, Gray.
Boba. That's it. Like Beetlejuice. Never again. We can never again talk about him. That's it. We've talked about him. That's it. Never again. Oh man, I mean, he was like dreadful. Like, let's be honest. Actually, in the league where it looks like that labor league looks like I'm gonna win, I had Boba there too. So again, you can overcome mistakes. But yeah, I mean, he was just dreadful. But a guy we briefly mentioned earlier, when we were talking about ADP, Bobby Miller was really bad. He was like really, really terrible. He probably he lost a lot of people some leagues if they kept starting him. Walker Buehler never really got going. Jordan Montgomery was awful. Who else?
Austin Riley,
yeah. Ozzie Albies. Matt Olson ended up being in the top 100 overall, but he didn't do as much as you wanted. Like, oh my God, Nolan Jones. Oh my God, man.
The Texas outfield duo.
Oh my God.
Gonna lead them for the next decade, and they're not gonna have any problems.
Evan
Carter, Wyatt Langford.
Oh my God, Wyatt Langford, man. Oh my God. If there was like one guy in spring training that just set fantasy baseballers' hearts aflame. Oh my God. Wyatt Langford was like, I think he got up to like top 50 overall in ADP by the final week of the season. It was like, oh my God, Wyatt Langford's going to hit 30 homers and steal 40 bags. Oh my God, he was terrible. He was so bad. Oh man. The bounce back on Jordan Walker did not happen. Didn't happen.
Jackson Holiday did not come up and rake.
We all
thought would happen.
Did not come up and rake. It did not happen. Oh man, there were some duds.
There's definitely some duds in there. There's also, massive injuries to the clear 101, the clear first pitcher off the board.
God, the Braves really had some bad luck.
Julio Rodriguez, not exactly helpful.
No, he wasn't. But you can't, like, Julio Rodriguez having a 2020 year. While you wanted more, you can't even compare it to like how awful it was to have Acuna. I mean, that was devastating. So crazy.
Yeah, especially if it was an auction where you spent, a third of your budget on Acuna.
Oh man. Imagine you were in auction and you're like, my plan is to get Acuna and Strider, and then I'll figure the rest out.
I'm just gonna figure it out from there. It's a shallow league. Who cares? Whatever.
Oh man, yeah, that's not
probably win it because you grab like $1 Brent Rooker and $1 Chris Sale and $1 Seth Lugo and Jack Flaherty and take a $5 flyer on Dylan Cease and just patch your way through it.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, that's really like at the end of the day, that is basically how you win leagues. As crazy as it sounds, I mean, those value guys are the ones that do it. Like the labor league where I'm in first place. Like I mentioned, how I had Julio Rodriguez as my top buy. It was an auction league, and Julio Rodriguez was the top guy I got, but I got Marcell Ozuna for $1. I mean, that kind of makes up for the loss in Julio Rodriguez, right?
Yeah, you get Marcell for $1, or you get Rooker.
Yeah,
that definitely helps. Or if you nail one of Ohtani, Judge, Witt, Jose Ramirez, if you had Skubal on your draft list, like there's definitely some guys who helped you. If you have Ellie, you didn't need stolen bases at all. You just let him do it. Just things to think about going forward. But you can hit dollar guys, you can, hit the top guys. That'll definitely help, but it's all a mix. I mean, you got to find ways to get through. The team you draft is not the team that's going to end it for you. Even like drafting holds or stuff like that, where you don't pick up players, the ones who end up contributing for you are not the ones you thought on draft day.
Right. Yeah, no, totally. Agreed.
All right, Gray. So that's going to do it for us this week. If you have any final week questions, you can find us on Twitter. I'm at RazBeaton. Gray is at Razzball. Next week is our top 25 for 25. It's going to be a fun title to play with. Maybe we'll do 30, Gray, just so we don't have to do the 25 over and over and over again, because that's going to get confusing, I'm sure. As always, if we helped you this year, rate, review, like, subscribe, wherever you watch or listen to us. Best of luck as we wrap up the season. Hopefully you take it on a trophy or some money or whatever it is you're playing for, or just don't finish last. That's always good too, Gray.
True.
I'll talk to you later, man.
All right, Lades.